Hey, what's up guys? So I want to talk to you guys about Yu-Gi-Oh's metagame and how it's kind of going downhill. And this is kind of more of a open discussion. And I talk to you guys on Facebook and I read some of your guys' comments and stuff. And a lot of you guys are complaining about, spellbooks, mermails, elemental dragons, even though they're not like playable yet, like in real life. But if you played online, you can definitely see how this deck will definitely be a meta deck. And also Fire Kings, off the top of my head, Grunix is just like the card that's just unbalanced. It's mostly Onslaught of the Fire Kings plus this card, but when it comes down to it, this card is insane, and there's no cost that you have to pay. There's no downside really to just going Onslaught Fire King Grunix. Okay, I blow up your field, and you get a 2700 monster out. That's a pretty good effect. But I understand your guys' pain sometimes when you play against decks and you're just like, oh, I lose because I just didn't draw the perfect hand. And like I said, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not a balanced card game. It wasn't meant to be a balanced card game. It probably will never be a balanced card game as far as the way Konami runs it. I hope in the future there'll be some MLG or some other settings in the game where you can't run certain cards. Obviously, the newer cards that come out, those cards will stay at 3 until the next ban list. Then Konami goes, okay, it's been really broken. We'll put that card back to 1, and then I'll slowly go back to 2, and then sometimes it'll go all the way back up to 3. Just like, Six Samurais have seen the smoke signals. It was at 3, then it went to 2, then a 3, and then just keep on flopping them back and forth. But yeah, that's just how Konami operates. They make a really, really broken deck, and then everything's at 3, and then they have to make a new deck that's more broken than the previous deck, and also, just to ensure that the previous deck doesn't win, they hurt the previous deck. So, let's just take something like Bismegalo, for example. Right now, it's at 3. It'll stay at 3 until they are done printing Mermail stuff. Once Mermail stuff goes away, they will then make something even more broken than Mermails, and they'll be like, Bismegalo is at 1, and this new broken card is at 3. So, therefore, you have to switch and play the new deck. But this is what's awesome with Yu-Gi-Oh! You don't have to play meta. If you want to win, yes, more than likely, meta will probably get you further in a tournament, but that's not to say you can't play rogue decks or a deck that you personally just made. Say, for example, Jeff Jones, his Grand Soil Psychics. No one played that deck before him. No one that I know of even ran Grand Soil, period. I've seen a few Gadget players try to run it, but not 3 of them, and Jeff Jones really made that card go up in price, and it was a pretty cool deck. And I think that that's what's awesome with Yu-Gi-Oh! Again, you don't have to play meta, but more than likely, if you're not very good at building decks, going meta, net decking is, not to say it's bad to net deck, because, it keeps the game in check. It shows that the game has a meta game. If you guys kind of understand what that means by, if you, for example, net deck Macro Rabbit, a lot of players will know Macro Rabbit is a meta deck. Therefore, people will side deck against that. So it kind of makes the game set up so you have your certain side deck cards against certain decks. But like I mentioned before, you don't have to play meta. For example, I played a deck that used Galaxy Queen's Light and a Message in a Bottle. This card had a different name before, but, I just messed around with this. I played Yubel and Lightsworn, and Yubel was a target with Message in a Bottle for my double Gustav Max that I would like to play. And, I also played stuff like Luminized Watts, and then I played, a Dark Magician deck that spammed Dark Magic Attack, and I also believe I played, Dark Curtain or something to special summon Dark Magician. You don't have to play meta, is what I'm saying. Go into Unranked, you can find these random decks, Spellbook Fortune Ladies. There's so many cool combos. Sometimes the opponent might not get off their combo because it's so conditional. They require 5 different cards, and yes, technically if it requires 5 cards, you might as well have played Exodia, but it's just cool to see these ridiculous combos come out in Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think that is very fun. But Konami knows that there are certain cards that are just really unbalanced, even though they've hit these decks. Things like Gateway. Gateway is unarguably just so bad for the game. Same thing with something like Ultimate Offering. This card is just bad for the game. Someone that plays Modolches, they open up with this, they can spam your field so hard, you just lose. And especially with Ticket and the field spell, it's just well, you can't ever get rid of my monsters, because whatever you do, I just get them back to my hand. Ultimate Offering, really nasty card for, in gadgets as well. This card is inherently just bad for the game. Another card like Drag Down. This card, I would say, even though Dark Worlds haven't really done anything, they have topped before, and I'm personally still surprised that this deck hasn't really gotten hit. But like drag down, I mean, why was Trap Dust Shoot banned? Oh, because looking at your opponent's hand was apparently too good. And Trap Dust Shoot, you can only select a monster card. Oh, drag down, don't worry about it. Not only can you cycle cards with it, but you get to look at your opponent's entire hand and get rid of key cards like Monster Reborn, Dark Hole, Heavy Storm, all these like really insane power cards. Just other decks that just, shut down decks to where other decks can't even play. For example, something like Evil Swarms. Like, if you're playing Mermails and they go Ophion, and you're like, oh, well, I basically lose. And, if Macrocosmos goes up against, Mermails, they basically lose unless they can get rid of it. It's very discouraging for other players to run into cards like Macrocosmos if they're playing a meta deck. But if you're playing something random like Spellbook Fortune Ladies or like a Dark Magician deck, then yeah, you probably won't have to worry about Macrocosmos. And also another thing, like Thunder King, this is a card where I really, really question Konami's intentions now, because Thunder King hurts spellbooks beyond reason. Elemental Dragons, and it's like, why would you put Thunder King, which hurts these super, super high meta card decks? Like, before I thought Royal Oppression, I was like, Oppression, why doesn't that card come back? It's like an anti-meta card. But the thing with Oppression, it allows you to spam the whole field with a whole bunch of special summon monsters, and then you go flip up Oppression, you lose. Like, you throw up a Stardust and like a whole bunch of other stuff, and you activate Royal Oppression, and your opponent is like, well, I can't special summon, I basically lose. But the thing with Thunder King is neither player can add. And then on top of that, it's only 1900. It's not like something really threatening, unless you're playing a deck like Windups, and then, 1900 can become, something that is annoying to deal with, but it still can be dealt with if you're playing the new build that I believe plays like Windup Soldier. But yeah, I really question putting Thunder King at 2. It slows down the game. I just don't understand that. But like I said, if you're tired of playing against these super meta decks where it doesn't matter how good of a player you are, you're just like, well, I lose because I didn't draw, I didn't OTK my opponent, first turn, or I didn't FTK my opponent. I guess he's winning next turn because of Spellbook of Judgment. Or, like, they go first turn, get Outline Darts Dragon, and that Phantom Beastcraft. Like, there's nothing you can really do in Yu-Gi-Oh! Sometimes, and that's just how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is. But to all the players that are complaining now, you don't have to quit Yu-Gi-Oh! What you can do, and I recommend doing this, because I have a lot more fun playing these random non-meta decks, or just mix in some meta with more meta. Like, for example, I'll put some of these down below in the description box, just so you, some of my newer viewers, you guys can check out some of these random decks that, are much more fun to pull off. Because, let's say, for example, you win with Mermails. Is it that satisfying winning with Mermails where you beat your opponent within, like, 2 to 3 turns? I mean, I love winning in Yu-Gi-Oh! Don't get me wrong, but when I win with a deck like Mermails, or if I was going to play like Fire Kings or Elemental Dragons, and if I beat them within like 2 to 3 turns, it usually doesn't become, a satisfactory like feeling. But when I play something like Dino Rabbit, Inzektor, Wind Up, Chaos Dragons, like, that as one deck, like, all in the same time, and I do some ridiculous combos, and I'll put all these down below in the description box, just so you can see some of these ridiculous decks that I just try out just for fun. It's much more funny, and I find it so much more satisfying, getting a win when I'm playing against a meta deck, and I beat them with, like, Dark Magician. Like, if I was playing Mermails, and I win with Dark Magician, that is awesome. Like, I mean, if you can do that, that's awesome too, and I think that's much more satisfying, winning with something non-meta. And if you lose, like, for example, if you're playing a Dark Magician deck and Mermails just run over you and beat you, does a Mermail player think he's really good? Because, I mean, come on, it was a Dark Magician deck, but technically Dark Magician has 100 more attack, and he's the ultimate wizard in terms of attack and defense, although I'm pretty sure there is probably a spellcaster who has more than 25. But, yeah, like I said, if a meta deck beats your Dark Magician deck, who cares? Like, it's like, well, yeah, you're playing meta. It doesn't really matter. But if you beat them, it's pretty awesome for you, because you can be like, oh, bro, you just lost to my Dark Magician, the ultimate wizard. And, like I said, don't quit the game. The game will continue to go on, and, eventually some of these cards will get hit, and we'll see new broken stuff. That just happens. That's just how Yu-Gi-Oh! Goes. And my recommendation is just to play, these random decks. Think of some random combo cards that are, like, insanely hard to combo off. Like, for example, there's this card I wanted to make, but it's not a very good one, but I can use this as an example. So, let's just use this as an example. Like, there's a whole bunch of these, like, well, this one's not a level card, but anyways, this is perfectly Ultimate Great Moth. So, it can't be normal summon or set. This monster can only be special summoned by tributing Petite Moth on the 6th turn of your turns after Petite Moth has been equipped with Cocoon of Evolution. So that requires you to have Petite Moth. Let's find out how awful Petite Moth. Here's Petite Moth. Very awful card. Vanilla, 300, 200. You can wrap it for it, though. And then you can go for Shiny Magician. But, oh, I'm sorry, Slacker Magician is the new name for the level 1 XYZ. But yeah, it requires this plus Cocoon of Evolution. So we'll type in this, and let's bring the Cocoon of Evolution. Here's the Cocoon of Evolution. And, again, not a very good card. So you can only equip it from your hand as an equipped spell to a face-up Petite Moth on the field. And if equipped, the attack and defense of Cocoon of Evolution is applied to Petite Moth. Well, let's check out Petite Moth again. From what I remember, it had like, yeah, it was very awful in terms of attack and defense. There's no way that this thing would ever survive. It's just probably not ever going to happen. But, you know, obviously this is just an example of some card that's just really hard to get out, really conditional, and if you can pull it off, well, that's kind of cool. But there are much better cards. Like, for example, there is a Puppet. This card over here, is this one where you win the duel? There's one of them where you just win, yeah, okay, so example, this one requires 3 level 8 monsters once per turn. If you have no cards in your spell and trap zone, you can detach 1 material to place 1 destiny counter on this card. You cannot conduct your battle phase the turn after you activate this effect. When this card has 3 destiny counters on it, the controller of this card wins the duel. Like, this is just an example of a really conditional deck, and trust me, you will have much more fun when you pull this, you know, ridiculous combo off. Well, this one is not really a combo, but essentially just getting this card out, having it survive for 3 turns, and then going, I win the duel now. It's much more satisfactory. And best of luck to you guys. You know, maybe if you're tired of the meta and you're just like, I keep on losing to Suppressor Dragons, and maybe you're playing Suppressor Dragons too. It's just like, you know, going first in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is definitely an advantage. And yeah, I mean, definitely go into the unranked section. You will see some random decks, and you know, I encourage you guys to play these random decks. And again, I'll have some of these random decks that I've built myself. A lot of them, you know, are not very meta, like they can't compete with the meta. But occasionally, if you draw like these like insanely perfect hands, it can work. But anyways, have a great day, and I hope, you know, these decks don't make you quit Yu-Gi-Oh! Because most likely you'll be back next format, because even myself, there are times where I'm like, you know what, I don't really want to play this format, so I go into the unrated section and I play these random decks and I have much more fun. So have a great day. Hope to see some of you guys play some unranked random decks, and I'd love to see some of these crazy decks in the unrated section, because it's much more fun to see. But anyways, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Asian Eyes signing out.